What's up, guys? Brett Appley here from DailyFanMMA.com, back with another UFC Quick Picks on the Mayo Media Network. We have UFC 285 this weekend, the return of Jon Jones for the heavyweight championship against Ciryl Gane. We have Valentina Shevchenko versus Alexa Grasso for the women's flyweight championship as well. I think there's like 14 fights on the slate. It should be a really, really fun card. I'm expecting a lot of big scores from a DraftKings perspective. As always, I'm going to give you my favorite cash game play, tournament play, salary play, and a matchup of the week from a DraftKings perspective. And before I do, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Guys, like the video. And why don't you let me know who's going to win the heavyweight championship this week? There's a lot of love on Jon Jones, but I've also seen some love on the underdog Gane as well. So very curious who you guys have in that matchup. Without further ado, let's get into my cash game play of the week, which is going to be Bo Nickel at 9.6K. Yes, I like Nickel in cash games at 9.6K. The reasons are quite obvious, though. You can play Valentina Shevchenko at 9.4K. She's an excellent cash game play as well. It's just I have to point out the metrics of Nickel here, who is minus 1,700 to win in his UFC debut over Jamie Pickett. The fight is minus 850 to end inside the distance. Nickel is minus 590 to win inside the distance, minus 210 to win in round one. Like, these are metrics. These are like the best metrics that we will ever see in this sport. And maybe there's others that have surpassed it to a degree, but like, it doesn't really get much better than this. And Nickel is one of the best collegiate wrestlers of all time. And so you have that aggressive wrestling style combined with insane odds to win inside the distance and win in round one. And Nickel is just going to break every projection system that exists. And from a cash game perspective, it's like, he's expensive, 9.6K, but he's probably be 10K on this slate. I mean, I don't think he's had a fight that's even gone a minute and a half. He's only, I think, 3-0 professionally, still very inexperienced as an MMA pro, but he has the wrestling pedigree to potentially be a champion in this middleweight division. And I think this is a pretty easy matchup against Jamie Pickett, which is why he's minus 1,700 to win. But Pickett just isn't that special anywhere. Defense takedown 65%, can wrestle a little bit, lands 3 strikes per minute, absorbs more than 4, 47% striking defense. I don't know. I just don't really know where Pickett threatens Nickel unless Nickel decides to stand and trade and like gets randomly knocked out or something like that. But that doesn't seem very likely. I think Nickel will be able to land takedowns whenever he wants. He has really aggressive ground and pound, good submission game, insane odds to win and win early. And I think you need him in cash games. He's obviously the very best tournament play on this slate as well, though he should be very, very popular. It's really tough for these 9.6K fighters to be optimal. And like, even if Nickel goes out there and scores 110 points, that doesn't mean he's going to be optimal on this slate. And if that is his actual score, I'd almost guess that he wouldn't be optimal. So if he's going to project above 50-60% owned, which maybe he won't be considering Tatiana Suarez was only like 45% last week, then you can come in underweight and look to play these Shevchenko, Gary, Rachmanov types in tournaments. But overall, I mean, Nickel is as safe as it gets based on his metrics alone. I love his wrestling style, and he should put up a very, very strong score. He will be my cash game play of the week at 9.6K. All right, moving on to my tournament play of the week. I just want to talk about Farid Basharat at 9.1K. I really think he's just going to be completely overlooked in this range, which is why I'm kind of mentioning him as a tournament play. Obviously, Rachmanov is a good tournament option, and Duplessis and Jon Jones, etc. But all these guys are obvious, and I think we're going to see a ton of ownership on Nickel, Shevchenko, Gary will get some, Rachmanov will get a lot. And then, Duplessis, Gamrot, Cody Garbrandt, Jones. So I kind of think there's going to be a dead range in this upper 8K, lower 9K pricing tier. And Basharat doesn't even rate out that well, which is going to contribute to what I would expect to be a pretty low ownership. He is minus 465 to win, but he's only plus 180 to win inside the distance, which is obviously poor compared to a minus 590 inside the distance line. I think this is a bantamweight fight. Let me double check that. Yeah, bantamweight fighting Damon Blackshear. And I really like the pace of Basharat. He'll be making his UFC debut. He is coming off a win on the Contender Series in which he landed 116 significant strikes and 3 takedowns. And I'm pretty sure I tried to tally this up and he would have scored like 117 DraftKings points in a decision. So it's not necessarily a fighter who is so dependent on an early KO like Gary or Rachmanov will be. There is a chance that Basharat can go a hard 15 minutes, mix up takedowns, mix in a high number of strikes, and score very, very well. And he's fighting an opponent in Blackshear who is fought to a draw against Yusuf Zalal. And like Blackshear's a good submission grappler, but he gave up 1 takedown on 1 attempt to Zalal, gave up 5 minutes of control to Zalal, and like almost got pounded out for a TKO stoppage in the 3rd round. Definitely question his cardio now. And I think Basharat is just going to fight at a really high pace. So that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to win this fight easily or win this fight inside the distance. But if Zalal can go 1-for-1 on takedowns, I think Basharat's a pretty good wrestler, a quality submission grappler. He certainly will have potential to mix in takedowns. Blackshear's just not that capable as a range striker either. So Basharat is probably the better boxer, is going to throw strikes at a high rate. And if we see a cardio failure again, and Basharat's able to, let's get a 3rd round stoppage, I do think there's upside here. And it's mostly, we talked about Charles Johnson, I think a week or 2 ago, I don't remember anymore, but it doesn't always work out. Sometimes these plays just fail, but I do think the ownership angle is pretty important, where we know where the lightning rods are going to be in Rachmanov, Nickel, etc., Duplessis, Gamrot, John Jones. I just don't see anyone playing Basharat, and it's for good reason. But if you want to be more unique in a large field tournament, such an easy pivot off Rachmanov, where Rachmanov's more likely to win inside the distance, but Basharat lands strikes and takedowns at a really, really high rate against a somewhat weak opponent who he's very favored, to win against. And at a potentially very, very low ownership, I think it's a interesting DraftKings option, especially in large field tournaments. If you have a portfolio to play with, you don't need a ton of ownership to be overweight on this guy, but I do think he's someone you should at least consider for the unique factor. All right, moving on to my salary play of the week, I will go with Viviani Araujo at 7.9K. There's just not a lot of underdogs I like on this slate. A lot of really big favorites. Araujo's only plus 102 as a dog against Amanda Ribas, and I think a lot of people like Ribas in this spot as well. It should be a competitive fight, and I wouldn't be surprised if Ribas won, but Araujo's a decent fighter, and she's going to be the best wrestler that Ribas has faced to date. Like, Ribas is having success over the Paige Van Zandt, Rhonda Marcos, Mackenzie Dern, Verna Jandaroba. Like, I think Araujo is definitely a step up in terms of a wrestler, both offensively and defensively. She's also going to be bigger and more physical than Ribas at flyweight, and she hits harder. And I still have some concerns about Ribas' durability, getting knocked out by Marina Rodriguez, then getting dropped by Verna Jandaroba. She was knocked out on the regional scene. And would be really hard for me to project a knockout from Araujo, but I do think that is an outcome in play, just especially a knockdown. It doesn't even have to be a knockout. I think some takedowns are in play. And ultimately, she's 7.9K. So she saves you some salary. She has a decent floor in a win. We're not expecting 100 points necessarily. She also has a better inside the distance line than Ribas, plus 385 versus plus 450. Land strikes at a pretty high rate, a capable wrestler. I like the savings here. Once you get, and there's a bunch of fighters in between here, but once you get below 7.4K, these are just dart throws. So the bottom tier of pricing is really, really poor this week. So I'm kind of looking for anyone who can win. And I do think Araujo has a very reasonable path to victory with some sneaky upside, and I like her for the price at 7.9K. And finally, my matchup of the week is going to be Derek Brunson versus Dricus du Plessis. Plessis is 8.7K, Brunson 7.5K. Plessis is the favorite at minus 225. Brunson plus 185. The underdog, this fight is minus 195 to end inside the distance. I really like the pace of this matchup and sort of the binary effect with du Plessis being a heavy hitter and Brunson just not being durable at all. I mean, Brunson's been rocked and hurt by so many people, knocked out by so many people at this point in his career. Even like in his last fight, he was kind of dominating Jared Cannonier early, took him down, knocked him down, and then was still gassed out to the point of exhaustion in round 2 and was knocked out. And like, yeah, maybe Brunson could knock Du Plessis out in the first round, but if this fight's playing out on the feet and Du Plessis pressuring and throwing bombs, I just really think there's a legit chance for Du Plessis to win by knockout in this spot. Minus 120 inside the distance. I think he'll be popular given his DraftKings history, but 8.7K is a good price to pay, a price I am willing to pay for his knockout upside. The thing is, if Brunson is winning, it's probably going to come from wrestling. He, like I said, he could win by quick KO as he has done many times in his career, but he's had much more success on the ground in recent fights. Du Plessis is a somewhat capable wrestler, but we haven't seen him fully tested defensively. He was taken down by Darren Till, which is a really bad sign. I don't know that I trust Derek Brunson at this stage of his career, but like, he is a good wrestler and he will very likely shoot for takedowns, and it's very reasonable to think that he could have success. Is he going to win at a high rate? I don't know, but 7.5K is a pretty cheap price to pay for a fighter who's likely going to score 90, 100 plus in a win if he wins. Plus 475 inside the distance isn't that strong, but some mild finishing equity there. And then just the leverage that you'll probably get against a very popular Du Plessis. So it's a matchup that kind of may not look that competitive. Either Du Plessis bombing on him and winning by knockout, or Brunson's landing takedowns, holding Du Plessis down and maybe winning by decision. I think the winner can score very well. I like the inside the distance line overall. Really good matchup to target on this slate. All right, that's going to do it for this week's UFC Quick Picks. Thank you again for the support. You can follow me on Twitter, Appley, TTP, dailyfanmma.com for all your DraftKings breakdowns needs. Best of luck in your contest this week. Take care. Stay safe, everyone, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace.